about listening to some of our current students about their experiences. And then there's time afterwards for you to put forward your questions for them individually or as a group. The students on this session will be talking about their own experiences and perceptions of their course. They will not be representing the views of all students or the views of that course itself. And everyone's experiences will be different. So the course options hub, the purpose of this session and the purpose of all the kind of information we're providing you is to give you the most helpful information to make an informed choice about the outside or optional courses that you have. It's important to make a decision this week, so you confirm with your school this week as well. If you haven't already, you should have already been onto the Course Options Hub, which is that website just on the slide, and I will put that in the chat box after I've spoken. But this is where you'll find all of the course information on PATH and DRPS, and also see how it fits around your timetable with the course timetable browser. So it's really important to have kind of looked through this already, if not using the time today or tomorrow to do it as soon as possible. You should aim to have at least 3 different choices so that when you do get to speak to your school this week, you have more options in case the courses are full or they don't fit within your program. We also have about 80 5-minute videos from lots of different academics from across all subject areas who are introducing you to their course. And these are really, really great insight about how the course will be taught and also who is teaching it as well. So these are really worth having a look at. Also, some of the academics have also offering some virtual office hours this week and some online Q&A sessions. So you can pop into those and actually speak to the academic about any sort of specifics about any of the course. And you can find all of these times and which courses are open from an academic on the UOE Events app. If you just go into the course options menu, under the welcome activities, you'll be able to see which academics are opening their virtual doors this week. And finally, your last step, after you've explored the website and you've watched the videos and you may have spoken to academics, and of course listening to our wonderful students today, is actually confirming your choices. The deadline to choose your courses is the end of week 2, which is the 2nd of October, but you will be probably doing that this week. During this session, we cannot give you any further advice about how that works because every single school does it differently. And they will be probably through your school induction activity that you'll be attending this week, if not through an email or direct mail or Learn or whichever. If from them they've given you no information about how to do this, you need to get in contact with them immediately. So just to kind of get going with our students today, the session will not cover all of the courses available throughout this subject grouping, but hopefully our panel today, which is Laurie and Eleanor, will represent some of the courses that you might be interested in or may even find out something that you didn't even know and might spark an interest. If there are other courses that you're interested in, as I said, you can find them on the Course Options Hub or the academic videos or even the apps. So keep exploring things. But that is really enough of me speaking. I am now delighted to hand over to our current students who are going to talk through their experiences of the course. And as I said, after they've spoken, we will open up the chat area for questions. And please raise your hand and type into the chat box when I ask you to do so. So thank you very much. And I'm just going to hand over to Laurie now. Thank you very much.
All right, guys, hello. It's Laurie, can you hear me? Trust that you can. Good stuff, good stuff. Okie dokie. So, thank you very much for introducing me, Leslie. As already mentioned, I'm Laurie. I'm a 5th year student on the MPhys Theoretical Physics program. And for a bit of background, I'm Scottish, born and lived in Edinburgh all my life, and started at Edinburgh Uni in 2016. My current academic interests are sort of particle theory, string theory, and the connections / dualities between all of them. At With Academia, however, my biggest and possibly only interest is ensemble music, and I participate in a large number of university music societies, from wind band to choirs. Now, felt at some point in this presentation I should mention why I chose Edinburgh. And while Edinburgh is unquestionably one of the best universities in the UK with regards to teaching and research of my personal interest, high energy particle physics, HEP. I grew up around the same time as all the initial palaver around the Large Hadron Collider and the Higgs boson, and as Edinburgh was home to the eponymous Higgs Centre for particle theory, it was the best place to learn everything I really thought I could ever want to learn about particle physics during an undergraduate degree. But, of course, beyond my initial academic reasons, I've come to appreciate a large number of things about studying here. Aside from being situated in a lovely city, which don't worry, you will get to experience at some point, there are a large number of aspects I really enjoy about the university. Certainly for physics, and undoubtedly for many, many other schools too, there is a huge crossover between your lecturers and academics working at the very, very forefront of their field. And all these high-flying stars profess to have a genuine passion for teaching and are more than happy to answer any of your questions on their topics, assuming, as usual, that they're relevant. In addition, there's always a bunch of student societies, peer mentoring groups run by older students, be it within the PALS framework or otherwise, so there's always a friendly, knowledgeable student to approach if you don't want to take your question to a professor. But in my first couple of years at Edinburgh, the available option courses from the School of Physics that I took were Physics 1A, its follow-up, Physics 1B, and Introductory Astrophysics. None of these courses require anything more than an A in the Scottish higher qualifications in maths and physics, so an A level in these as an equivalent would be probably sufficient. For a bit more detail, Physics 1A is somewhat similar in scope to the kind of classical physics you may have met at A level or advanced higher, touching on the big names you'll remember, like linear equations of motion, simple harmonic oscillators, etc. But what I really enjoyed about this course was how, whilst it did admittedly rarely touch upon new topics, those which you would already know are elaborated on with much greater care and greater generality. This approach did help me understand where and when we could apply formulae and concepts, instead of the pretty high school notion of learning by rote where to do so, something that's invaluable philosophically for further study in physics or STEM or really any other field, and makes it a much more rewarding experience if you wish to take Physics 1A as an outside course choice, or indeed if it's part of your prescribed degree options. Now, in contrast to Physics 1A, Physics 1B introduces a large variety of concepts that are completely new to the average physics entering student. Whilst at A level or advanced higher or higher, you may have encountered a large number of things such as Snell's law. 1B introduces you to a wide range of optical phenomena, all firmly grounded in the classical theory of waves. But 1B, perhaps more interestingly to a lot of you, also serves as your first true encounter with many classic physics buzzwords, such as quantum mechanics and cosmology, where you'll solve your first simple examples of quantum systems and have your first interactions with the particle zoo of the Standard Model, learning the very fundamentals of the universe we inhabit. In addition, you'll also have your first intro to university laboratory physics, where you will learn how to work well with other physicists, how to play nice, and how to best analyze data and eliminate practical errors in a fairly relaxed group-based environment. As you could possibly tell, I really, really enjoyed this course. Whilst as a theoretical physicist, lab work is really not my kind of style, the taught component of this course proved to be extremely exciting, as it's genuinely your first opportunity to tangle with the real big questions in physics, the open-ended topics of grand unified theories and such like, introduced towards the end of the course, have personally inspired and focused my studies ever since. As such, this course would be an excellent fit for you if you're interested in having a well-rounded view of most, if not all, aspects of modern physics, and or getting your hands dirty in a physics lab. Finally, for introductory astrophysics, this course aims to give a complete introduction to the astrophysics you would encounter during any physics degree. The first part focuses on cycle, the second on galaxies, including a brief foray into the study of black holes and the role they play in galactic structure. And the third and final part introduces cosmology and some of the big questions in that field touched on in 1B, but in much greater detail. With the exception of concepts you'll need more math than usual to understand, such as radiation or general relativity, this course gives a complete description of the big topics in astrophysics from an introductory perspective, as you might have been able to surmise from the course title. But the part of this course I really, really liked was the relentless enthusiasm from the instructors. Whilst I was eventually able to determine that astrophysics was not the part of physics in which I was interested, I was able to firmly make that decision without the quality of teaching having any impact whatsoever. I've never taken a course taught with as much enthusiasm as this in physics since. So if you're curious about how the larger universe works and want to sit a course that's as well taught as any I've heard of, Introductory Astrophysics is probably a good choice for you. But now, having gone through all the courses I know and love from my first year at Edinburgh, I feel it only right to end with a few tips as you start your degree. In general, the thing I found most challenging about getting started was the one thing most people do upon arriving at uni, the whole developing a self-motivated work ethic thing. I'm sure you've heard this from literally everyone you've discussed uni with, but it's typically true. Whilst the standard of teaching here is exceptional and the opportunities to solve problems and grapple with the fundamentals of your course plentiful, and even in these somewhat more restricted times, the temptation to go out and explore overwhelming, unfortunately, you will still need to convince yourself to sit down for a few hours a week and actually try to tackle the problems and watch the lectures. This is something I personally learned late, to my detriment, only really figuring out last year when things became very grade critical. But being able to follow what's happening in a course as it progresses is extremely useful and will stand you in very, very good stead even after all the COVID-related adjustments return to normal. But on a more reassuring note, don't be afraid to spread your wings a little in first year if you want to. You can take any course from most other schools with exceptions, such as medicine, law, and vet med, to indulge your curiosity. And you can start off taking more courses than you wish to take to exam and narrow it down later to the ones you genuinely enjoy. There is no real risk to it from what I gather. But yeah, so on that more positive note, thanks for listening. And I hope this has been informative and helpful with regards to the first year physics courses.
Oh, there you go. So if anyone is having any trouble with the audio at any point, just fire a message into the chat and let me know. But just so I am aware, is that audio working for people? Brilliant. All right. So on that note, let me introduce myself. My name is Eleanor. I came to Edinburgh as an international student, actually. Obviously, you possibly can hear I'm originally British, but I spent 5 years in the US. I study chemistry. I'm on the MChem course, which is a 5-year program here. I started way back in 2017. And regards to chemistry, over the last 3 years, I've really discovered I'm super interested in the organometallic side, the organic side of inorganic, if that's not too confusing, and analytical chemistry. And outside of the lab, I'm also a big fan of music. I like food, I like languages, I quite like bees, I think they're really cute, and politics when it's not too distressing. So that's a little bit about me. In terms of, with regards to science, why I chose chemistry as my degree and why I hope you might consider chemistry as your optional. It's just one of a very applicable, it's an ever-changing science. It's at the forefront of so many other parts of science. It's at the forefront of medicine and climate science, materials design. And it makes such a huge difference in modern industries, which is so critically important, as I said, with medicine. But it also answers some of the more age-old, intriguing topics. It touches on what's going on in space. It touches on philosophy with things like quantum mechanics. So it fundamentally enables you to tackle many, many science problems that you might have an interest in from a unique angle, and help you to collaborate and become scientifically literate. So I find it to be a particularly fascinating subject. Oops, can't make this thing work. So in my first year, the relevant courses for this were I took Chemistry 1A, that's in the course running up to Christmas, and then in second semester, Chemistry 1B. Chemistry 1A tackles subjects from all 3 of the main chemistry disciplines, being inorganic, organic, and physical. It tackles molecular orbital theory, spectroscopy, trends of the periodic table, an intro to some thermodynamics, and some fundamental organic mechanisms as well. You can expect an hour tutorial, 3 hours of labs, and 4 or 5 hours of lecture content. And the important thing to note is that this isn't reliant on a particular body of knowledge. They stress that this is an introduction to these courses coming from a point where you have probably taken chemistry at GCSE or at A-level, but they don't expect anyone to have retained all of that information. What they're teaching you is the basic principles of the science, and they're contextualizing the science that you may already have known. And then if you choose to go on to Chemistry 1B, they start talking about things like transition metals and aromatic chemistry, states of matter, hydrogen chemistry, which I seem to remember involved a couple of explosions in our lectures, which we thought was amazing. So in these first chemistry courses, you get a real breadth and depth of the subject. For me, the highlights of this are that the labs and tutorials are extremely sociable. The course is one of the most well organized that you will encounter. So if you are having trouble structuring your day or structuring your learning, then a course like chemistry, they really emphasize how to structure your learning in this first year. And you get plenty of hands-on lab experience. And I think there's maybe a preconception if you're coming from outside the sciences and you want to study something like chemistry, that it's all quite technical, it involves lots of maths or physics, and maybe that wasn't your strong point, or that it's lots of technical jargon, but it really doesn't. They break it down really, really nicely for you in these first courses, and the staff members are just unbelievably passionate about what they're teaching and extremely approachable for all of the years. And just in general, chemists, I'm sure, as you will find across the board at Edinburgh, are just a really nice bunch of people. And so I really wouldn't be afraid of maybe going out of your way a little bit, and if you're considering chemistry, and exploring that part of the campus, exploring the King's buildings, and just taking advantage of that, really. And in case you're interested, my particular highlight was inorganic chemistry, which I continued to really enjoy. As with every course, there are also some challenges. I think these are the big three for me. Firstly, that labs themselves can be quite intimidating. I'm not sure how they're going to be running this year, potentially socially distanced and things like that. But in general, they're an excellent opportunity for socializing and meeting like-minded people. But they can also be quite a difficult environment to walk into, especially if maybe it's been a while since you were last in a lab. And I would just stress that if you go slowly, you ask the questions when they come to you, and you are patient with yourself, labs will be a really rewarding experience. And if you're maybe nervous about having not written up a lab before, worrying about your scientific writing ability or anything like that, just take half an hour the night before your labs to read through the science really critically. If you don't know what concept means, you don't remember how to do a titration, there's so many resources available, and just take 5 minutes to watch something on that subject, and you will be so well prepared regardless of your background. So it's just all in the preparation for labs. I learned so much more in the labs when I messed something up than I did in the labs when it all went perfectly. I can still remember how to do an esterification based on how badly it went in my first year. And absolutely no one judges you for making mistakes like that. You should expect to be breaking things and spilling some things. It's a learning experience, and there's no pressure on you to be perfect. Similarly, academically, not everyone is at the same level. Again, there's no pressure on you to be perfect in a course like this. It's one of the ones where they teach you from the ground up. So just expect that you're going to find some things easier than others. You'll have weeks that fly by, weeks when you're getting stuck in concepts. Just keep a list when you're going through those lecture material notes, when you're going through your tutorial questions, of what you really struggle with when you come into contact with it. Don't wait till December for the exams, is what I would say for that. And in terms of maybe being put off thinking about how many things are under the chemistry radar, just focus on what they're teaching you. Don't get bogged down by your expectation of chemistry. Just follow along in the tutorials and you'll be absolutely fine. And just very briefly, more broadly in terms of optional courses, I'd say the biggest thing is don't ever be daunted by a skill component of a course. So for example, labs, because it will teach you how this goes. Don't worry if you think it's the most perfect fit for your CV right now in the first year. Worry about whether you have a genuine passion for it, whether you'd be interested in learning about that. And you're always going to learn valuable skills in whichever course you pick. And be honest with yourself about genuinely what are you enjoying, because you have to pick optionals in second semester, you have to pick optionals next year. You'll gain so much more beneficial experience from picking a course that you have a passion for, that you are excited to attend. In general, in first year, the most important thing I can say is that you shouldn't stop making friends. You shouldn't stop seeking new experiences. If something isn't going right, know that it's not going to be that way forever. And similarly, don't be embarrassed ever to raise an issue with your personal tutor. They're absolutely fantastic. You can build such a good support network through them, and be honest about what you're enjoying. It's the key to making friends that you're really going to gel with. And so on that note, I hope you have a wonderful first year in Edinburgh, that you feel super, super at home, super quickly. And obviously with all the COVID restrictions, it might be different, but just take your time, reach out when you need help. Remember that 4 or 5 years fly by. The fact I'm in 4th year is terrifying. It will happen to you as well. But I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful time in the meantime, getting to your later years in the degree. And with that, I think I'll hand back to Leslie. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Laurie and Eleanor. That was really, really interesting insight, and thank you for all your reassurance for our new students.